He was a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and the speech he gave, which may have been one of the more radical speeches, was actually toned down. His original draft of his speech was little beyond what Dr. King and some of the other more seasoned leaders of the movement wanted to be said from the podium on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. But it was certainly a momentous occasion. At the age of 23, Hank Aaron had a pretty good year in the majors. He led the then Milwaukee Braves to the World Series against the Yankees, and he won the 1957 NL MVP, beating 8 other future Hall of Famers, including names like Musial, Mays, Spahn, and Banks, to win that title. They both, of course, were well known for integration. Congressman Lewis, certainly much more, with Bloody Sunday taking place on March 7th, 1965, on the march from Selma to Montgomery over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, where he was frankly beat to within inches of his life. A lesser known integration, though, was Hank Aaron's. We know that Jackie Robinson broke the color line in the majors in 1947, but in 1953, Hank Aaron, along with a handful of other young Black players, broke maybe a more difficult color line, and that was in the South Atlantic League. It's the minor leagues. If you think about the team in Lansing or Midland, it's that level, people who are 3 or 4 years from the big leagues. But the South Atlantic League plays in small towns in the Deep South. When Jackie broke the color line at the majors, that was in large Midwestern and East Coast cities, far different than the rural towns in the Deep South where Hank Aaron faced a lot of discrimination, even beyond what Jackie faced. But for us today, I wanted to talk about what they did for the rest of their lives. Hank Aaron was famously consistent. He never hit 50 home runs, but he set the record that I think still holds of the home run king. He was consistent in his message at the plate, what he did, very, very consistent. Congressman Lewis never stopped fighting for civil rights, even right up until he died. He was with young people this past summer in Washington, D.C. with the Black Lives Matter movement. His purpose never changed. And that's the message for us today, whether you're on the baseball diamond, in the streets, or in your daily life, to have that sense of purpose and focus that's consistent throughout your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Excellent. Health and welfare. Are there any updates or reports on the health of Rotary members? Hearing none. Are there guests to be welcomed today?
Yes, I have a guest.
Okay.
I invited Leila Forrest from the Flint and Genesee Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, fantastic. Well, welcome, Leila.
Lee.
We're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. You're welcome.
See,
Other
I have
announcements?
a comment. One of my mother's childhood friends just died this month. She was 102 years old.
Wow. Oh.
And there's 2 historical things about her life. She was a Maryknoll nun for 75 years, and she marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday.
Oh.
The other unfortunate incident that she was involved in, again, she was a Maryknoll nun down in El Salvador in 1980, when 4 of her associate nuns and 3 nuns and a layperson were murdered by the Salvadorian military and buried. Sister Dorothy was one of the nuns kneeling by the gravesite that was in the Time magazine in 1980. But she died 2 weeks ago. Anyways, it's a significant part. My cousins who lived close to where the mother house was for the Maryknoll nuns kept in contact with her up until she died.
Wow. Fantastic.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much.
Can I make an announcement now?
You
I
cer-
just I would just like to officially congratulate Dr. Gist for his award. It's an international award and for his leadership in the dental profession. The actual organization, we were saying before, this is like getting the Nobel Prize for dentistry. Dr. Gist.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ray.
Thank you.
Maybe, Dr. Gist, if you could tell us what the actual name of the organization is or what it was.
Yes, it's the International College of Dentistry. And actually, Dr. Schick is a past president of it too.
Oh, wow.
We've got some real climbers in this profession.
Well, congratulations to you, Dr. Guest, for getting that award.
Thank
It's a good honor for Ray. He deserves it.
Yes. Yay.
Thank you. Other announcements?
How about Dr. Bobby, Marie?
Someone else was going to make that announcement. I thought, John, were you going to make that announcement? From the Sybil Atwood Awards? Is Dawn still there? Maybe not.
She seems to be double booked.
Oh, okay.
But, so I'm happy to make the announcement.
Okay.
I was on the committee, but Dr. Bobby was the recipient of the Sybil, one of the two recipients of the Sybil Award, which was last night, along with Shirley Cochran from Motherly Intercession. And then Danielle Brown was given a Lifetime Achievement Award posthumously. So, but kudos to Dr. Bobby for his ongoing work in our community and living up to what Sybil would have expected out of a Flint person.
We have some wonderful leaders in our Rotary, don't we?
Yes.
We do.
We do.
Thank you for that. Okay. Next slide, please. So now it's time for the program. President-elect Kyle McCree will give the introduction as Flint Rotary welcomes Representative John Cherry and the Legislative Director for Representative Cynthia Neely, Ms. Sharon Reeves. Kyle, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, President Ray, and good afternoon again, Rotarians. First, going to read just a brief bio on Representative Neely, who we heard from a little bit at the beginning of the meeting, but with family matters that she's dealing with isn't able to join us, but we are grateful to have Sharon Reeves join us on her behalf. And then I'll do the intro for Representative John Cherry, and then I'll throw it to the two of them to greet us and provide remarks, and then we'll have a hopefully good Q&A. So Representative Cynthia Neely is a Democrat serving in her first full term in the Michigan House of Representatives. She won a partial term to the House in March of 2020 due to a special election as the seat was vacated. Representative Neely is honored to serve on the House Health Policy and House Tax Policy Committees. She has a variety of focuses, which I'm sure Sharon will touch on, but they include increasing access to affordable health care, good funding for our schools, fair wages for women in the workplace, and job training and skill development initiatives. She takes pride in her community. You'll see her at a lot of community events, and she has been doing them very actively already in her first year in office. She's had 2 bills signed into law and has had 6 bills passed. The 2 bills that were signed had to do with financing convention centers and decriminalizing certain driving offenses. Representative Neely is a small business owner in Flint, and she has a educational background coming from Star City High School in Star City, Arkansas, moved to Flint and attended my community college where she received her cosmetology license. That's the business that she is in as well. She proudly lives in Flint with her husband, who was our speaker last week, Flint Mayor Sheldon Neely, and their 2 daughters and a pit bull named Ace. She is also a committed member of Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church here in the city. And Representative John Cherry is serving in his 2nd term, representing the 49th House District, which covers part of the city of Flint, along with the cities of Mount Morris, Flushing, and Swartz Creek, and along with Flint Township and Mount Morris Township. He currently serves as Minority Vice Chair of the House Government and Operations Committee and serves on the House Energy Committee and the House Commerce and Tourism Committee. From a young age, Representative Cherry's had a deep love of the outdoors. I can say that I've shot a real gun once in my life, and it was with him at a clay shooting event. I hit like 2 things, I think, but John showed me what to do. He loves to fish and loves the outdoors, loves to bird hunt with his father and his family and friends. He's a committed outdoorsman and deeply believes in conserving our environment, making sure that Michigan and Michiganders have a place to enjoy the outdoors. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan, where he received his BA in Natural Resources and Environment and returned to get a master's in Public Policy from U of M. After graduation, he worked at the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and the Office of Science and Policy, and later moved to the grants management staff. In 2015, he ran and won the Flint Charter Commission and was vice chair of the commission, which proposed Flint's first new charter in more than 40 years. And prior to joining the legislature, he and his wife, Teresa, started a small business in the city. They have 1 daughter, Diana, and 2 yellow labs, Marley and Sassy. And so I have the pleasure of introducing State Representative John Cherry, and representing Representative Neely will be Sharon Reeves, who is not a stranger and a longtime community activist and longtime involved in civic life. So Representative Cherry and Sharon, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kyle. And yeah, as Kyle mentioned, this session got appointed to the House Energy Committee. So I have the pleasure of getting to work with Kyle on a pretty much a near weekly basis, and I can't ask for a better person to work with. And it's great to have that relationship, and he having just been promoted within Consumers Energy there. So I'm excited to work with him over this next session. And thank you for having me today. As Representative Neely was mentioning, we just started our new session, just got our committee assignments, and have started our committee hearings. In terms of how the session started out, it seems to be a little bit rougher than last session, because I think there's still some consternation and disagreement over the scope of the governor's authority to manage the epidemic. And so there hasn't been much of a honeymoon. Usually the first 3 to 4 months we are trying to work together on bipartisan stuff at least, but it's been a little bit partisan so far, as you might have read in the newspaper, with the governor requesting the COVID relief supplemental, and just some disagreements between the governor and the Republican majority in both branches. Hopefully, we're going to be able to set a better, hopefully do a little bit of a reset and try to get folks working together a little bit. That's my hope. I am working on a series of bipartisan packages and bills myself. Right now, I mean, I have 5 that I'm working on out of the gate. 2 of them are leftovers from last session. Usually in December, we're able to get a number of different things done, but if you may remember, there was the, Rudy Giuliani election hearings. And after that, there was a little bit of a COVID outbreak in the legislature, and we ended up having session canceled. So a lot of folks had packages they were trying to finish up, die off. And so one I'm dealing with is a issue that prevents the DNR from doing some of the wildlife studies that they used to do, trying to correct a little issue there. The bigger one is I've been working with Representative Mueller, who's a Republican out of Linden, on a package of bills that reform mobile home regulation and strengthen the mobile home regulation in the state. And a couple of weeks ago, you might have seen a little article in the Free Press. I'm working with a number of the Prosecutors Association, the Sheriff's Association, and some Republicans and some Democrats on trying to put together a bill that will strengthen some gun safety, safe storage of your firearm requirements, and essentially making sure that people are not allowing their firearms to get in the hands of children, and trying to making sure that those are stored safely, and to reduce the number of children who are being injured or killed due to accidents because they got a hold of a gun that was not properly secured. The two other pieces that I'm working on, you may be aware that we've had a lot of unemployment issues, and folks who have faced unemployment are many times having difficulty interfacing with the state unemployment system. So I'm working with a number of different groups to try to develop some longer term solutions to that issue, so to make the unemployment system a little bit more efficient and responsive when folks apply for unemployment. And then finally, I'm working with Representative Howell out of Lapeer to make some changes to the Recreation Passport Program, which funds our state parks, to help increase the funding for our state park system. And so those are the ones I'm working on out of the gate. I got a few others that I see coming down the pipe, but I'm hoping to get most of those accomplished in the first 6 months of the year here, is my goal. And I will just say, there's two representatives out of the city of Flint, Representative Neely and myself. And she obviously, as Kyle had mentioned, she came on board in March. She came in a very difficult circumstance. She came right into the frying pan, as it were. And she's been great to work with. And I think we have a great relationship, and I expect we're going to be able to do some good work together on behalf of the community.
Okay.
Sharon, can you unmute if you want to?
Is Sharon still there?
Oh, I don't know that I see her on there.
I see her on, but I don't hear her. She's unmuted, but I don't hear her speaking.
It's technology.
Isn't that right?
Well, I guess while we're figuring out that,
Sorry.
so one of what we're working on right now, or one of the big things that we're working on amongst the delegation, is some of the COVID vaccine distribution. Genesee County has been a little bit on the low side in terms of receiving COVID vaccines. And so both Representative Neely, myself, and Representative Sneller out of Burton and Grand Blanc and Mundy have been working hard to try to increase the allotments to Genesee County. And, over time, we've seen our percentage of the allotments increase. We're happy with that, and stuff's starting to go a little bit smoother now, but we're still trying to make up a little bit of ground there. But that's one of the biggest issues that we've been facing as a delegation out of the gate here this year.
Okay. And Sharon,
I don't know that Sharon's microphone is working at all, because I don't even see the microphone symbol under her.
Okay.
We want to do Q&A and send her a message, and if she can chime in, then
yeah, I just sent her a message. I just sent her a message to see if she could join us.
I've got a question.
Go right ahead.
Representative Cherry, when the governor ran for office, one of her campaign battle cries was "Fix the roads, damn it."
Mm-hmm.
That was a short-lived battle in the legislature once you took office. Are you seeing any effort or progress that's taking place in Lansing to fix the roads?
Yeah. So there's really two, I would say initiatives is the wrong word, but last year, the governor, when the when her roads plan, which involved a significant tax increase on fuel, was not able to get support in the legislature, she put forward her bonding proposal. She has the ability to bond to get dollars to immediately invest in roads. And so that bonding proposal has gone into action, didn't require any legislative approval associated with that. Now, the one issue about that is that when the state bonds, does those road bonds, it can only be used on state managed roads. So you're thinking about your expressways and your M roads. So if it's US or M, that's where that money can go. So there's a significant amount of dollars that are going to be invested on those roads. But that leaves a lot of our local roads that we drive on every day without any additional funding coming from that. Now, one of the things that the governor mentioned in her State of the State is in last session, there were some proposals by different legislators, including Representative Sneller and Representative O'Malley, the Democratic vice chair and the Republican chair of the House Transportation Committee, to offer some local road funding options. And in the governor's State of the State message just a few weeks ago, she threw some support behind putting forward some local road funding options. Now, I think there's as I understand from my discussion between with Representative Sneller, there's some discussions going on with the administration and Representative O'Malley and Representative Sneller on what that's going to look like. But the proposal from the previous session, there were a series of different options that included a local gas tax option where the whatever locality it is could have a gas tax for gas sold in that area, and that would go to those local municipalities to fund the local roads, or a local registration option, so an additional fee on your registration that would go to the local municipalities to do those local road projects. Those were some of the options that were discussed, but my understanding from Representative Sneller is that him and Representative O'Malley are having discussions with the administration on what a local road funding option would look like this session.
Thank you.
Just for whatever it's worth.
I have another, John Cherry, a young lady. Did you want to, there you are. Did you want to speak?
No, I'm sorry. I thought I was muted earlier. I really apologize. That's my bad.
Let me introduce, this is I just brought on a new staff person who is my constituent relations aide. This is Katie Olkowski. She just started last week. So, and she's been doing great so far. So if you call my office, the voice that you are likely to hear is Katie's voice.
Okay, well, welcome, Katie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's really nice to meet you all.
I've got a question.
And there was another question that was coming on board before I'm so rudely interrupted.
Oh.
Who was asking?
I don't know, but I've got one.
Okay, go right ahead, Joe.
First, to John, please send our regards to your dad, who we all know, and your mother, who we all know, or most of us. Great people. You've got great parents. My brother lives in Houston, Texas. He has not had power right on through, didn't have it last night. And I know you're on the Energy Committee, and I guess this is to Kyle too, if he's still there. What is your reaction to the whole situation that's going on in Texas with energy right now? And could anything like that ever happen in our state?
So, Kyle, I'm going to jump in and try to answer this question. And if you think that I've made a misstep, I will not hold it against you if you jump in and make a correction. Thank you, Joel, for the greetings. I'll pass them along. And I believe you just won an election yourself. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Congratulations. And so with the situation in Texas, as everybody knows, there's been significant blackouts throughout the state. And really there's been a lot of energy failures from almost all the generation sources. Essentially, the cold weather that they had, which they are completely unused to, had impacted the ability to deliver energy from multiple sources. We've heard about, windmills freezing. Well, also there have been natural gas pipelines that have frozen up, and so natural gas wasn't able to be delivered in sufficient quantities to their gas plants to generate electricity. And then, of course, the weather itself prevented the transportation of the utility workers to solve those issues on the energy distribution system. And what compounded the problem is that Texas is not only is it a fully deregulated state. So when I say that, here in Michigan, we're more of a hybrid state, leaning towards more regulated. So you automatically are a consumer's energy customer, and consumers has a territory that it services. In Texas, you choose who your utility provider is, and those rates are not regulated. And so because they're all generating different facilities, and there's a less of ability to share the energy between the facilities, and it's compounded by the fact that, so Michigan is part of what they call the Midwest or the Mid-Continent, it's MISO's for short, Mid-Continent something distribution system, MISO, which spans multiple Midwestern states. So if there's issues here on generating power, like, if a plant goes down here, we have energy coming in from other states to cover us to meet that load. In Texas, they have completely cut themselves off from the distribution systems of surrounding states. So when they've had plants go down, other generation from surrounding states haven't been able to come in and meet the increased demand that was there in Texas. And so there's just a variety of factors that has made them vulnerable to that difficult weather. Now, in terms of whether it can happen in Michigan, I mean, we have that weather routinely in Michigan on a yearly basis. I mean, our big crisis was 2 years ago at this time, when there was the accident at the natural gas facility, and we were able to get through that without major disruption, people conserving energy and the utilities responding in their way. From my layman's view, the bigger concern in terms of something happening for us is during the summer, but we have I think we have a more resilient system than what exists in Texas, in our ability to shift and respond to demand. And part of that also is the fact that consumers has what they call the Ludington Pump Storage Facility, which is able to respond to high levels of demand, where you can think the way that electricity is generated is you have a turbine that turns magnets, and we can turn what you can use to power the turning of that turbine can be steam, in a traditional fossil fuel, or it can be the wind in a windmill, or in hydroelectric, you have falling water that turns a turbine that generates that electricity. Well, the consumer's facility, the pump storage facility, during times of low demand, they use excess energy to pump water into a reservoir. And then when there's higher demand, they let the water go through the turbines, essentially release the water to go through the turbines to generate electricity to meet that demand. So I think we have a little bit more resilient system in Michigan. And so I think it's less likely that we will face a situation that Texas has. And Kyle, is there anything that I misstepped on there?
No, you did a really good job. I will say MISO is Mid-Continent Independent System Operator. And I only know what that means because you speaking gave me time to pull my notes up. That's so I have it spelled out. I think you're really right on a few things that are different from Michigan than Texas. Certainly ERCOT, the Texas grid system is only Texas, so you don't have the ability to go to other parts of the state. I'll note that El Paso was actually on the Western continental grid. In El Paso had a few thousand customers that were out, none for more than 15 minutes, with certainly the same or similar weather as the rest of Texas. And then also for us here in Michigan, our turbines are built for our weather. And so this is a situation of if you bought windows, that were built for the Southwest and you put them in upstate New York, you might have some issues. And if you're not buying the right product for the right system, and then also in Texas, something that we've actually dealt with here in Michigan, when consumers bought a power plant maybe 15 years ago, we had to retrofit it because it was not properly built to stand the Michigan weather in terms of things that were exposed and subject to freezing. And in a non-regulated market, you have less incentive to invest in that kind of reliability because you're solely competing on price. And if you don't have a regulator forcing you to meet a certain standard, things like what we saw this week can happen. So.
Thank you.
President
Any other
Ray,
questions?
I've got one.
Elizabeth?
So Michigan has the dubious distinction of being kind of a canary in the coal mine in terms of the political violence that we saw in Washington, D.C. last month. And we've seen as recently as kind of this past week, some of the minimization of that danger from folks in some of our own local or state government. And so I just was interested in your take on what's being done to ensure the safety of our public institutions in Michigan and what's being done to kind of ratchet down the tone of some of this inflammatory rhetoric.
So not enough is, probably the unfortunate answer. In terms of toning down the rhetoric, it seems to keep building up. And things that have been done in terms of improving the safety, at least of the Capitol Commission finally banned open carry of firearms from the Capitol. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have concealed carry. I mean, they haven't acted on concealed carry, and there's no metal detectors or anything like that. So, I mean, there's still issues there, but the Capitol Commission did take that step recently. Now, there have been bills introduced that would increase Capitol security, and in the governor's executive recommended budget that she released last week, she asked for $5 million to put in place security measures in the Capitol. I do not believe that the majority is interested in doing either of those things. Some of the bills that were introduced that would put a greater level of restriction on firearms in the Capitol were sent to government operations, which I think Kyle mentioned. I'm the Democratic vice chair on government operations, which is a little bit unusual. Usually that position is reserved for the Democratic leader in the chamber, and my leadership asked me to stand on that committee, but that committee often deals with a lot of partisan issues. And so the fact that it got referred, so when the partisan, when those bills that are put forward by Democrats get sent to that committee, usually they are not brought up by the majority. And when Republican bills get referred to that committee, it's usually a signal that we're going to have a fight about those particular bills because they're going to be brought up. So I take that as a signal by the majority that they are not interested in going any further in terms of Capitol security. Really, the Senate is an interesting. So some of the things that you were mentioning, the rhetoric, a lot of it is coming out of the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Shirkey, and there is, in any caucus, Democrat caucus, Republican caucus. There are folks who are a bit on the hotter side and folks who are a bit on the cooler side in terms of how they approach things. And the concerning thing in the Senate is the folks in the majority on the Senate, the ones on the cooler side, are all going to be termed out of office. So it's one of those things where I'm, and obviously Senator Shirkey is not one to tone things down himself. He keeps adding to the fire, it seems. And that's a concerning thing going forward in terms of who we are having push forward issues. Now, one of the things that I think might help us is the fact that we have now an independent redistricting commission. So a lot of the, I think, partisan nature in the fighting has to do with the fact that we're really most of the legislators in our state legislature are primarily elected in their primary. And we don't really have competitive general elections. And so what do you get? You get folks, parties tend to put forward the ones who are most extreme. I think with more competitive districts in the next election, that might help us get a set of more level-headed folks in the legislature who are willing to have conversations together and be a bit more conciliatory towards one another. That's my hope.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I see that Sharon Reeves is back on. Sharon, how are you? Oh, you're muted.
Hi, I'm fine. How are you guys doing today?
Just fine. Did you have remarks that you wanted to make?
Well, I just wanted to briefly speak on some of the things that Representative Neely is doing and has done since she's taken place. Right now, she's working on health policy and tax policy for our community. And she's passed actually 2 public acts. She has actually passed House Bill 6235, which prohibits denial to issue or renew driver's license for failure to appear, which is something that's really good, especially for this community, because we do sometimes have a hardship on trying to get some of our things paid. So without having, a license, a lot of times we can't get back and forth to work or doctor's offices, so that kind of works out for this community and other communities as well. And she's also passed House Bill 6119, and that covers the State Convention Facility Act. It actually helped to redirect about $10 million to the general fund to help improve public transit and local government through the current pandemic. Those are just a couple of things that she has actually gotten passed, and it's actually been signed off by the governor. And right now, she is working on a bill that she's trying to get in place, and it's going to be called Messiah's Law. And it's actually named after the first little boy that was killed in a drive-by shooting. His parents reached out to Representative Neely's office, and so we've been trying to get something put in place to try to work with families that are having issues where they've had drive-by shootings. I've actually looked at a couple of things, and it's not actually only happening here in this particular area. I see where it has happened, like in the Pontiac area. It's happened in the Detroit area. It's happened in other states around here. So that's something that we thought was something that we probably wanted to work on to get put in place. And we are having our first coffee and conversation. It's going to be at Dom's on March the 1st, and it's going to be from 9:30 to 10:30. If you guys or if anybody wants to come out and speak with us one-on-one. So those are some of the things that Representative Neely has been working on and is currently working on, as well as other things, co-sponsorships with other bills as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions for for Ms. Reeves, Legislative Director. Good, thorough remarks. We're not getting any questions here.
I think Jim has his hand raised.
I do.
Sorry. I didn't
President Ray, Jim Richardson. Question I have has to do with revenue sharing. I'm wondering what work is being done to help with revenues into local units of government through revenue sharing.
Those are some things that we are working with, Representative Neely is currently working with some of the other representatives and in the area as well as in other areas as well. Jim, I can get that information and I can get it back to you if you need me to be a little bit more direct about what she's currently working on. I'll have that information sitting right in front of me, but it is something that I can work on getting to you if that's what you are looking for.
Well, I was just curious about how the legislature is feeling about support to local units of government and how that might play within the budget.
I think that any of our representatives that are in the area, and I believe any representative that is representing any area, they're all doing whatever they can to have support as far as finances for the local government, especially during the pandemic, because that is something that is really needed in every community throughout Michigan. John Cherry can probably step in and say a couple of words on that.
Yeah, there's two pieces I'll add. One is in the governor's recommended budget, there's a 2% revenue sharing increase. That's not enough, but there is we're going to be in for a few tough budgets here because of the COVID situation, and the COVID situation has actually created an immediate local government funding crisis, particularly associated with cities that have income taxes, like the city of Flint. So the income tax, if you live outside the city and work in the city, then you pay the income tax. That's true for any city that has an income tax. Well, a lot of cities in the state of Michigan, they have their job centers. So people come into the city, work, and then go back home in a suburb. Now, and you can, if you think about the city of Flint, and there's a lot of folks who come in and work downtown and then at night go home to, Grand Blanc or Flushing or wherever. Well, if they are working remotely, they no longer owe city of Flint income tax. And so there's a big income tax funding issue that these income tax cities are facing. And part of the supplemental, the relief supplemental includes I want to say it's either 70 or $90 million to backfill the lost revenue that income tax cities are facing because of this issue. But we're going to have a broader conversation about it, because it may be that even when all the, we have vaccination penetration sufficient that we can largely return to normal, it may be that remote work becomes more of a new normal, and that's going to create greater funding challenges for cities, particularly cities that have income tax, and that's got to be part of a more expansive conversation. But right now there is a proposal, and I think there is bipartisan support, because the Republicans had put it forward last session as an issue that we need to backfill some revenue to these income tax cities, or else it's just going to be, quite frankly, catastrophic. But that is out there, and I feel that there's bipartisan support for solving that issue in the near term.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to come back to the COVID issue. I guess the first question is, of those that are eligible in this meeting, how many have received their vaccination? How many have received their second vaccination? Very good. I found it extremely difficult. Basic guidance was apply wherever you can and hope. So the question, based on the fact that the federal government distributes the supply of vaccine, which is supposed to increase and distributes to the state, does the state have a team that is adjusting their distribution and inoculations to respond to the increased vaccine will become available, and then the increased number of people that will be vaccinated? I don't hear or see or feel any comfortable command and control. It seems to be there seems to be no unity of command and control.
I agree with your question.
So I want to step back and kind of talk about how there really is a lot of decentralization. And I think right now there's some fighting about whether there needs to be greater centralization. The way that it worked from really December is when the vaccine started to, in its infancy, started to be available. And the federal government really took ownership of the distribution of vaccine to places like long-term care facilities. Now, a lot of the other vaccines were just given to states, and the state was given the ability to determine how to do the distribution within their state. Now, the state of Michigan had some contracts with a couple of pharmacies where they would, of their allocation, give some of those vaccines to those pharmacies. And then they distributed the other vaccines down to really 3 different types of entities: hospitals, federally qualified health centers that in this area, that's like Hamilton or Genesee Health Systems, and local health departments. And they distributed it, and it was a very complex system on who got what, why. And it involved people requesting vaccines and some, what is the population that are within, what is that area's population that is within the group that has been opened up for vaccination now? Are they 1A, et cetera? What's the population that we estimate for that area with that? What did they request? It is very, very complicated on how that distribution is going. It has since been simplified. Now, the distribution to the local area largely is based upon a federal social vulnerability index, which deals with things about whether there's health disparities, the age of the population, essentially whether it's a vulnerable community, large, and then the population of the community. And so there's no more of these entities requesting vaccines. They are just told, you're getting X number of vaccines. And it's based largely on that formula. Now, that has resulted in Genesee County increasing the amount of vaccines that it was getting based on, compared to what it was getting previously, because we're higher on the social vulnerability index, and we're significantly, we're one of the larger counties in the state. And there's been a little bit more vaccination that you've seen over the past month or so within Genesee County, because there's been increased vaccine availability. The health department started off a little bit rough, but we have a new health department director who I think has quickly gotten stuff into shape with the health department. And it's like, I'm very happy with the new health department director. I think she's been doing a great job. She came out of Henry Ford Health System and has her ducks in a row and is very active and working very hard. And she came on really mid-January. The ripple that is occurring right now, and there's quite frankly some fight between the governors, and when I say governors, multiple state governors and the federal government, because the federal government is right now shifting away from giving states vaccines and more to getting contracts with pharmacies. So the supply that the federal government has is less being distributed to states and more being distributed to these pharmacies to do the distribution. And there's some disagreements between governors and the federal government on that. And I think that is at this point unresolved if that shift is going to continue or not. The other issue that we're facing is, you can think in January when these vaccines were coming down, they were all first dose vaccines, right? Now that people have started to get their first doses, so think if in January we were getting 5,000 doses of vaccine a week, those were all going in as first doses. Well, if you're still getting 5,000 doses a week later, you got to use those doses to do the second doses and fewer for the first doses. So even though we're increasing the total number of vaccines we're getting to the county, because a lot of those are starting to have to be second doses, those first doses are actually kind of narrowing down a little bit. So we're kind of, if you look at the curve, it kind of goes up, then down a little bit, and it's going to kind of flatten out unless we're getting a significantly increased supply from the federal government, in which case we'll see it going up in terms of the total number first doses being administered to folks. If you thought there was, and I would say, I think your thought that it wasn't very well coordinated is correct. That was essentially what the plan from the federal government was, is we're going to get these vaccines and we're going to give them to the states and they can have complete discretion on how to administer those vaccines. That was completely the case, and each state is doing it differently. And there were some bumps. The states, if you look at the local health departments, each local health department was doing it and still is doing it a little bit differently. And that has resulted in some of this, sign up wherever you can type of methodology. And that I will say is still in flux. I think the state is doing it better today than we were doing it a month ago. I have not tried to sign up for anything. I'm a 35-year-old individual without really any particular health issues. So I've not tried to sign up. I think the health department is doing a very good job. When my time comes up, I will attempt to register with the health department to get my vaccine. I know that's maybe a bit more complicated and not a satisfying answer, but that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, before Fred gets there, I guess based upon my military experience, you would have a core group of people that would be in charge of the logistics of this. Then you'd have another support group or the actual vaccinators. And it's not that difficult to train vaccinators. There's hundreds of them in the community, simply paramedics and EMTs that work in ambulance services, plus retired nurses. It just seems disunified. What I would establish or suggest is break it down by zip codes, which would be easier than one would think. I mean, everybody's got driver's license or state IDs, which have your driver's license or your zip code on it. So there's a database that has everybody that has a state ID and a driver's license. And you can then focus, and you know the age of these people. So you can then focus geographically based on the zip code and then move your resources within that zip code and get it done. That's it.
Oh, thank you for that feedback.
To tie in with Richard Gibbs, Representative, why could the draft board do it right 50 years ago? In my situation, when you wanted me to take lives, man, you could find me. But when I want to save my life, man, all the hurdles. It just strikes me. How serious are you on this?
Well, I'll tell you, I am almost on a do not answer list because I've been on the phone so much with DHHS. Our delegation, Representative Neely, Representative Sneller, myself, actually, I was talking to Representative Sneller this morning, asking if he got a call back from the legislative liaison from DHHS, because we had sent a letter to the director last Friday and not heard a response. Our delegation sent a letter concerning vaccine distribution. It is an issue. I think all of your representatives in Genesee County know it's an issue and have been conveying our concerns to the Department of Health and Human Services. There are multiple problems that kind of overlap on each other. One is the fact that there simply are not enough vaccines at this point. The other is that in the state of Michigan, our health department system is a decentralized system. Some states have a very centralized health department system where they're all essentially creatures of the state health department. In our case, they are very decentralized. They are autonomous entities. And so it is a bit more, the state health department does not have, beyond setting regulations, command authority over local health departments. They cannot say, you are going to do X, Y, Z. So I don't mean to create excuses for the problems. I mean, there are problems, but it's tough. We're trying to build the airplane as we fly, essentially, because our health department system was not set up to deal with this type of mass vaccination effort. And there are problems. It is not functioning the way that I would hope it would function. And I have been communicating vigorously, as have your other representatives, about these issues, because I will tell you, you are not the only ones who have talked to us about this. We get these calls to our offices. And it is my intent, and I'm sure it is the intent of the other representatives, to continue to push for changes in how DHHS is distributing the vaccine.
Thank you,
Representative. Thank you.
So I just have a comment, if I could. Dr. Bobby isn't on today, but he has suggested that the vaccines be filtered through the individual doctor's offices when possible, especially to reach some of the more underserved folks that are maybe not underserved, but folks who would have difficulty in getting the shots or getting registered, like, your 96-year-old aunt or something of that nature.
That's a good point. There are states that are also including dental offices, medical and dental. So that's another possibility. But George, would you give me the last slide? I want to thank both of you, all three of you, actually, if you can find it. Technology. There we go. Flint Rotary thanks both of you, Representative John Cherry, actually also Representative Cynthia Neely, and Legislative Director Sharon Reeves. Flint Rotary thanks all of you for your perspective in this engaging, very engaging presentation, and in appreciation for the time and preparation that you donated for our enjoyment and education. The Rotary Club of Flint will make a donation in your names to the Rotary International Foundation for the Eradication of Polio. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. And if there's additional feedback that you want to provide or suggestions, please reach out to my office or email me at johncherry@house.mi.gov. Just my name, johncherry@house.mi.gov. Or I'm going to put in the chat also our office number.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I want to thank President-elect Kyle McCree for his very inspirational message and for introducing our speakers. And thanks to our note taker, past President George Anthony. Flint Rotary thanks each and every one of you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our program as much as we enjoy welcoming you as members and as guests. Please join us next Friday as we continue our governance presentations with Mr. Mark Young, Commissioner Mark Young, chairperson of the Genesee County Board of Commissioners. Stay safe, keep warm, and look to open opportunities in order to provide service above self. We are adjourned. Okay, it was a tick, but we still got to work on that bell.
Sorry, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. We have to get a buzzer for Bob's seat to wake him up.
So we've got John Cherry's information. He's got his email here. That was also recorded, right, George?
Yep, it's recorded and he put his number up in the box and his email. So I'll make sure those are in the notes.
Okay, very good. Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed us today. And looking forward to seeing you next week.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
Okay, you're welcome.
See you.
All right, bye-bye.